I've really tried it all. So this was my transformation up to date. I am always going to be on a journey, of just becoming healthy with, like Elisa said, the side effect of fat loss. So I lost over 60 pounds. I've lowered my A1C. I was in the pre-diabetic range. And I've, resolved a lot of my own health issues. So my personal turning point was realizing that weight loss wasn't about eating less and exercising more, despite, all of what my doctor continued to tell me. And I saw how blood sugar swings could drive hunger and fatigue and fat storage. And I learned that, metabolism was hormonal, not mathematical. So that's where the calories versus chemistry comes in. So, essentially, despite your doctor or dietitian telling you to eat less and exercise more, you continue to gain weight, because there is more to the story. So, I'm going to tell you some of the secrets that your doctor doesn't tell you. So, why most diets fail, is because, like I said, we're white knuckling it through the week and we're draining our willpower, to stick with this super calorie restricted diet. And we're hungry and we're craving everything we know we shouldn't have. So we quit and we feel guilty and feel stuck and we're frustrated and we get angry at ourselves and we just think we're a failure. But what you need to do is to switch off your hunger and cravings so that you can handle them, right? By eating the right foods. So this is human physiology, right? So if I gave you 7 ounces of steak and a large order of French fries, they have the same amount of calories, but the steak will keep you full for hours on end, especially if you pair it with fiber, which a lot of us know. But the fries will make you hungry within the hour because they were engineered that way. So you keep coming back for more. So essentially what's supposed to happen is when you've had enough, your fullness hormones would typically send that message to your brain that you've had enough and it's time to stop eating. But certain foods actually bypass those fullness hormones, like the giant bags of potato chips that I used to eat, and they trigger your hunger hormones. So they actually have scientists that work in the lab trying to develop these foods. Like, I'm sure you've all seen the commercial, with the Lay's. I bet you can't just eat one, right? The scientists work on that so that you crave more of those foods. So even when you've eaten more than enough calories, that's how they're designed. So your doctor's advice to eat in moderation and control portions and restrict calories falls flat because you can't moderate foods that were designed to override fullness hormones and stimulate your hunger hormones. It's just a no-win situation. So what you need to do is to replace the foods that make you hungry with foods that keep you full and satisfied. So you need to take those hunger stimulating foods out and replace them with foods that balance the hunger and fullness hormones. So in essence, a low carb way of eating, high protein, high fiber, low carb will actually lead to less hunger and less glucose spikes and therefore less insulin spikes. So like I said, protein, fiber, healthy fats, and carbs sprinkled in, which leads me to my next slide, because this is one of the things I teach my clients is to eat your food in the right order. The order in which we eat our food matters, right? So the majority of the population is not eating enough fiber, for one. I am the culprit of that. And protein. Everyone is eating lower protein and they rely heavily on packaged and processed foods. So it's really important to lead your meals with fiber and protein. Protein stabilizes glucose, it improves satiety hormones, fiber slows carbohydrate absorption, and it blunts blood sugar spikes. And that just helps reduce your cravings naturally. It helps you stay fuller longer and prevent energy crashes. And I always say have carbs as dessert, right? So many people, I know, my mother-in-law, she used to tell me she made cookies, but they were sugar-free because she used to take the cookies and roll them in sugar, like for the coating, which, I loved. So she just didn't roll them in the sugar. So they didn't have sugar, but she didn't understand that carbs turn to sugar. So I would say carbs as dessert. If you've eaten your fiber and protein, you can have the carbs at the end of the meal, and that will help blunt the glucose spike. So another thing that I usually challenge people to is to try and eat foods without a label. And if they have a label, so if it's not just meat, veggies, fruit, any of those, if the food has a label, try and eat foods with less than 5 ingredients on the label. And I think this surprises a lot of people when they go to the grocery store and they look at how many ingredients are in the packaged foods that they're eating. So we also want to ignite fat burning mode because your body either runs on carbs or fat. So you have two fuels, you have carbs and fat, but your body only burns one at a time. So if you think of it in a way that you're trying to start a campfire and carbohydrates, which is glucose or carbs that you eat, are like the crumpled newspaper. That's how we used to start fires. We'd throw newspaper in there and it would go up in flames. So that is the carbohydrates. They ignite instantly and they're a quick energy. They give you that quick heat. Your body loves using them because they're easy and they're efficient. And who doesn't like easy and efficient, right? Even our bodies do. But paper burns fast and disappears quickly. So you have to keep throwing in more. And if you add too much paper, it smokes up the room, right? So this is like blood sugar spikes. And then it takes a while for you to come down from that. But because the fire is always busy burning paper, it never gets around to the logs sitting underneath. And the logs are your body fat. So the thing is you feel hungry often, your energy goes up and down because you're burning the paper and then you need to throw more paper in. And those logs take longer to catch, and that's part of it, right? But once they do, they burn slow and steady and for hours. And your body can use your body fat as fuel, right? These logs will produce consistent heat without needing that constant refueling. So essentially, you get stable energy, fewer cravings, longer satiety, and your body finally uses the stored fat. So insulin, so every time you eat, and especially when you eat carbs, but anytime you eat, insulin is released. And insulin is a hormone made by your pancreas that acts like a traffic controller, essentially. So it controls where the nutrients go, especially glucose. So its main job is to move energy from your bloodstream into your cells where it can actually be used or stored. So that is the goal of insulin. Grab the sugar, move it into your cells. It's kind of like the key to the door of your cells, and your cells are like locked houses. So the glucose is essentially standing outside trying to get in, and insulin unlocks the door. But sometimes insulin has to continue to knock on the door because the lock gets stuck and the cells become less responsive to insulin's knocking. So it kind of tunes out that constant noise. So what the pancreas does is it compensates by producing more insulin to keep blood sugar controlled. And this chronic high insulin state pushes the body towards that insulin resistant state. That's where you see the increased hunger, the difficulty losing fat, and then eventually over time, you get the rising blood glucose levels if that cycle isn't interrupted. And that's insulin resistance and how it develops, and it leads to type 2 diabetes. And here in Canada, there are very few physicians that actually test fasting insulin levels. So fasting insulin is different than fasting glucose. People often get them confused, but fasting insulin levels are often high for years before you would see it in your blood glucose levels. But doctors are only catching it once it shows up as a high blood glucose level. So we can catch this years before. So this graph shows what happens to insulin levels with the standard advice of eating, 6 small meals a day. So your fat fertilizing hormone is essentially turned on. So the green is the increased insulin when you're eating, and the blue is the decreased insulin when you're fasting. So essentially, you should always either be feasting or fasting if you want to lose weight. And, because when you eat frequently and you eat a lot of refined carbs, again, you get those insulin spikes, right? So you get the blood sugar, it rises quickly, insulin spikes come to bring it down, blood sugar drops too low, the brain says, eat again, preferably sugar, because I like to burn that really fast. And then the cycle repeats, and then you're in fat storage mode all day long. So great, if you're grazing all day, if you're just like having little snacks all day long, you would just have green peaks all day long, and your body can't burn fat if insulin is constantly present. And it's just essentially telling your body to store it. It's fertilizing the fat. So how you can get around this, as I'm sure you've kind of figured out, is you can play with your eating window, right? So if you've done intermittent fasting, heard of intermittent fasting, this was my first, the first thing I tried was shortening my eating window to 8 hours a day. That's a popular option. What this means is you have all your meals in 8 hours, which leaves you 16 hours to not eat, which the majority of it is usually while you're sleeping. And during this time, your insulin levels are low and you are in fat burning mode. So an example is eating only between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. But at the very least, just stop snacking. Have your 3 meals a day that have lots of fullness stimulating foods in them. So this is more of like a time blocked eating. It's not about starving. It's about giving insulin time to come down. So 3 structured meals is way better than grazing all day because it allows your body to switch from a sugar burner to being a fat burner, and it improves your insulin sensitivity and your energy overall. So we're not talking about restricting foods, but we're rather creating metabolic rest periods, just so your metabolism can have that time to work properly. So, like I say, intermittent fasting is when you are going to have a chance to eat your own belly fat. So we dealt with hunger by reducing carbs, eating foods in the right order, adding fiber, increasing protein. When you're not eating, you're fasting. Like I said, intermittent fasting is a very popular place to start. Best way to lower your insulin levels and then get you into fat burning mode. And then introduce supplements if needed, which are very helpful because they can bridge nutritional gaps. They can optimize a lot of things, mental performance, support recovery. And supplements are metabolic aids that support your healthy lifestyle and your habits. So in combination, and they help you to move closer to that healthy lifestyle. They're helpers, like training wheels, I like to say, like the fiber supplement, that acts like a speed bump for glucose. It slows digestion. It helps with, a smoother blood sugar response. It helps fullness signals reach the brain sooner, and it makes it easier to avoid snacking or overeating. And then, many people talked about the, metabolic support drink. So the yerba mate, which I absolutely love. I love the flavor of it. I could drink it in my sleep, but I still have some to finish off for tonight, but that helps. I actually wear a CGM often. So I have tested the products because I am a science nerd. So I wore a CGM, I tested the products. I saw that, it helped my glucose. It helped to reduce any post-meal spikes. My cravings were under control. My appetite, it was weird because, I was on my own journey. I have lost a lot of weight. I'm still on a journey trying to build more muscle. But that level up of appetite control and less cravings was just amazing. And I'm busy. I have 2 kids now. I'm their personal Uber driver, driving them around to all their activities. And a lot of times I am unable to feed myself. They are fed. So I love the yerba mate. I have a water in my car all the time. I have the packets loaded in my center console. I think I saw somebody with their TikTok. They showed their center console full of them. That is me. So, I don't see it as another weight loss product. I see it as, metabolic support. And I really think it's, such a great system to help you rebuild that foundation in the background. And again, it doesn't have the side effects of GLP-1s. I, years ago, tried a GLP-1 myself. I work in the field of diabetes full time. It just wasn't for me. And I am not against GLP-1s. I think they are another tool that people have, and I coach a lot of people that are on them. But regardless of whatever you take, you do need to change your nutrition and lifestyle in order to create good habits. So the great news is that you can still live your life and reach your health goals. Reaching your health goals doesn't have to feel like a root canal. And I think that's what we were taught in the past. So, as Trent mentioned earlier, this is my version, but you can prevent or in some cases, reverse chronic disease. Like myself, my family history of type 2 diabetes didn't have to dictate my outcomes. And if you take pretty much any chronic modern disease, listed here, PCOS, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, fatty liver, Alzheimer's, which they call type 3 diabetes, they are all rooted in insulin resistance and insulin levels being too high over time. So if you're living with any of these conditions or you want to reduce your risk of developing these conditions, you'll want to follow some of the phases we just talked about. So my quick start steps that I talked about in summary, eat 2 to 3 meals, stop grazing in between meals, stop snacking, build your meals around protein and fiber first, leave 4 to 5 hours between meals when possible, stop eating at 7 p.m. That alone can be a game changer when you really extend that fasting window overnight, and use metabolic supports if needed to smooth the transition. It's not extreme. It's not keto. It's not about perfection. It's just about retraining your metabolism.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Anna. This is awesome. And I just absolutely enjoyed every second of that. It was awesome. We're going to try to bring Anna back at the end if we have time. We're going to go quickly and try to have some time for some Q&A. So if you have a question for nutritionist health coach Anna, we'll be able to ask those questions here in a moment. But Anna, would you mind putting your social handles in the chat so that people that want to follow you and see your content could do that? That would be awesome. So thank you so much. I want to just point out one thing about calories and chemistry that was absolutely paradigm shifting for me. It was a paradigm shift that helped me change the way I think about calories and chemistry. And I also want to explain the protocol. We have so many medical professionals on tonight's call. We're grateful for you guys. We're glad that you're here. So many medical professionals behind what we're doing. And many of you we're going to be featuring on upcoming calls. So it's great to have you here. I want to give a shout out to them here in a moment. But I want to explain one thing in very, very layman's terms to everybody that really makes sense to me. I learned this from Dr. Jason Fung. Okay, so if you've read Diabetes Code or Obesity Code, I learned this from Dr. Jason Fung. So Anna talked about this. This is a Trent dumbed down version of it. When insulin is low, it is a message to the body to be burning fat, to be burning calories. Okay, so let's say that your body requires about 2,000 calories a day to function. And let's say that you give your body only 1,500 calories from food. If insulin is low, okay, if insulin is low, and this is the big if, your body is able to easily get the other 500 calories from fat. The body is happy because it is getting everything that it needs, either from food or from fat. And it can do that so long as insulin is low. What happens when we have a calorie deficit, but insulin is high? So what happens if insulin is high? Well, insulin being high is a message to the body to be storing calories as fat. So let's say that you still need 2,000 calories, right? And you give your body 1,500 calories from food. If insulin is high, the body is unable to get the additional 500 calories that it needs from fat. So insulin inhibits lipolysis. What does that mean? It means insulin being high makes it impossible or very difficult for the body to burn fat for the extra 500 calories that it needs. And so guess what the body's going to do? The body is going to make compensatory changes, and it's going to lower the total amount of calories that it burns each day. Because insulin is high, it has to compensate. And so now you've cut your calories by 500, but you're treading water. And it's all because insulin is high. So how do we force insulin lower? And Anna just gave a great description of how to do that. Let me explain to all those of you that are new how we do it on this protocol. So if you're new and you're like, okay, what did Elisa and Samson do? And what is Anna talking about, right? What we do on this protocol, if this is breakfast and this is lunch and this is dinner, what most of us are doing is we are forcing insulin down. And we do this by taking breaks from food. Many of us are skipping breakfast, okay? Now, when you skip breakfast, you force insulin down. Insulin being down means that the body, like Anna said, you're eating your belly fat, you're eating your love handles for breakfast. The body is still getting calories, but it's getting those calories from fat. Now, if that sounds a little difficult to you to skip breakfast, I love breakfast, right? If that sounds difficult for you, we're going to show you how to make it super duper easy. Now, before our meals, Anna talked about having fiber, the right types of fiber before we eat lunch or dinner, before we eat the carbs especially, because this will help limit the blood sugar and insulin response. This also helps us feel fuller for longer, all right? So in a perfect world, you would be fine to fast. You'd have dietary discipline, right? And in a perfect world, you would have a garden salad in your back pocket 24/7 with a bunch of whole herbs and veggies and seeds with tons of different fibers, right? And so in a perfect world, fasting would be easy and fiber would be easy. Obviously, we're not perfect with our discipline, and we're not perfect with, nobody has a garden salad in their back pocket 24/7, right? And so what we're doing on this protocol is we're essentially adding some tools to make it very, very easy. Now, what I'm showing you here is not a gimmick or a snake oil thing. It is not just some supplement that we're saying is going to heal the world, okay? This is different. So this is something that has been studied now at 20 plus different institutions, okay? It was originally developed by Rexall, and it's been studied by the Cleveland Clinic, which is the #1 heart hospital in the world. It's been studied a bunch of different places, okay? It is safe, it is natural, there are no drugs in it, and it makes fasting and fiber super duper easy, okay? So it comes in two parts. The first part is something that we do whenever we're not eating. So between meals, or if you're going to do some intermittent fasting even, anytime you're fasting, you can sip the Unimate. This is a concentrated extract of the yerba mate plant, and it naturally raises GLP-1 by 60 to 70% with no drugs, no shots, no Ozempic, right? It's the natural GLP-1 in your body. When GLP-1 goes up like that, guess what goes down? Food noise. It makes me forget about food. In fact, I have not had dinner yet. I think I had lunch around 1 o'clock. So I'm like almost 8 hours into a fast right now, sipping the Unamate. I don't even think about food, right? I'm going to have dinner soon. And just before eating dinner, I'm going to have a packet of fiber. This is not just any fiber. This is not psyllium husk or benefiber or any of that. This is a blend of the most potent and uh, I would say viscous fibers that I have been able to find on planet Earth. And by having it before the meals, it solves the problem of the blood sugar and the insulin spikes. And that was studied at the University of Sydney, which is the home of the glycemic index. They proved that this would be a disruptive protocol, right? And so this protocol is so simple. Whenever I'm not eating, I sip the yellow one. Right before my largest meal each day, I take the orange one. And in some cases, I'll even do 2 orange ones a day. And in fact, every day, I personally like to have a fiber before each meal. But it's that simple, okay? Now, the beauty of this is life has gotten very expensive. I don't know about you, but I feel like the cost of living is getting crazy, right? This protocol is literally cost neutral. It will save you money. If you save money on this protocol, would you put a save money in the chat for me? I want people to see how much money is saved on this protocol. And it's really not rocket science. Okay, look at that. Save, save, save. Okay, it's not rocket science. It's pretty simple. It's basic math. Let me ask you a question. How much does the average meal cost you today? Let's say you're going cheap. Let's say you're getting fast food. Most people that I ask this question to say that a fast food meal these days costs $8 to $10, right? When you skip a meal, you're going to create some savings. We're going to take that savings and use it to cover the cost of the protocol. It costs $5.30 per day to use the protocol, all right? It literally pays for itself. Now, if there's anybody on here who is skeptical, maybe there's a medical professional who has not yet heard of this, let me just give some quick information for the skeptics, okay? So number one, this is listed. In fact, if you're medical, if you're one of the doctors, nurses, dietitians, diabetes educators, health educators, if you're a medical, if you work in the medical community, would you write medical in the chat for me? I want people to see how many medical professionals are all about this. I saw several doctors in the chat. So medical professionals love this protocol. And the reasons why they love it is number one, it is very, very clinically tested. It's been studied over and over. But number two, it's in the physician's desk reference. So any doctor or medical professional can look it up in the physician's desk reference and read all about it. The other thing about it, it is absolutely guaranteed to work. Anybody that uses it properly and is consistent can get a 90-day money-back guarantee. All right. And the last thing is it is now HSA and FSA qualified. So for people that don't have traditional insurance, you can pay for it with your HSA or FSA funds. Pretty cool, right? But here's the best part about it. If whoever invited you to this call, if you just send them a text right now to learn more, you say, send me the link, okay? They send this text message to whoever invited you to the call. And in a second, I'm going to show you something that is just so beautiful. You're going to love this. But say, send me the link, and they'll send you a link with a lifetime discount so that you can lock in the lowest possible price. You will never pay what everybody else is paying on Amazon. Never, ever. You're going to say like $80 off of what people are paying on Amazon, and you will lock in that discounted price forever. Best part is 90 days from today, you're going to look and feel better, or you can just get a refund. So if you haven't started the protocol, tonight's the night. Say, send me the link, get the information, get it ordered, choose your flavor. You can do orange or mixed berry on the balance. You can do lemon or lemon ginger or chocolate mint on the Unamate. There's lots of different options. Tonight's the night where you're going to get started and start this change. 1 year ago today, Samson said that he decided to say, send me the link, and he ordered the protocol. And look at him and Elisa's before and after today, right? Just incredible. Now, I want to ask everybody a favor. Many of you have been on this protocol, and I don't want it to come from me. I want it to come from the chat. So for those of you who have been on this protocol, maybe you've been on it for a week or a month or a year like Samson, or maybe longer. If you would take maybe 10 seconds and just write a sentence in the chat of what it has done for you, any measurable positive improvements. And we don't need to exaggerate, just what has it done for you that you can measure, any measurable positive improvements. If you'd put this in the chat, I want to read a few of these and let our guests see what is happening with this protocol. Okay, these are coming in faster than I can keep up, but I'm going to read a few of them. And we won't have time for all of them. Linda Davis, my husband's A1C is down from a 12.3 to a 5.8 in 10 months. No brain fog. He's down 64 pounds, zero neuropathy pain. Keith Newsom, reverse type 2 diabetes in less than 3 months. My blood work is perfect and I'm down over 90 pounds. I've healed a foot ulcer that took my life a year ago in 3 months. The doctors are amazed with my results in less than 6 months. No longer have autoimmune symptoms. Brittany Held. I've reversed my type 2, my high cholesterol, my anxiety, and my gout. I'm off all meds. I'm down 50 pounds, life-changing. Scott Harker says 45 pounds lost. Wow. Celeste Shai says chronic inflammation gone, neuropathy gone, my hair loss has stopped, and I've lost 20 pounds. Robert Andrews is on 3 weeks, and he says 3 weeks down 13 pounds, more energy. Nikki Yu says neuropathy and migraines gone. 2 short sizes, 4 pant sizes, amazing. Kim Pedicini, 3 months. I'm off my thyroid medications, down 17 pounds. Cholesterol is getting better. Chris Luna, I've been for 3 months, lost 50 pounds after my open heart surgery. Ben Kozasek says more energy, less body aches. Yvonne Thompson says energy is out of the roof. We'll just read maybe 2 or 3 more. Warlicia Fata says lost 40 pounds, no more pre-diabetic, no more migraines. Shannon Davis, registered dietitian, says I've triglycerides from 250 down to 50, and HDL has gone from 53 up to 122. Tracy Johnson says, I've lost 8 pounds in 1 week. Derek Henderson says, my triglycerides have gone from 160 down to 72. My weight is down from 241 to 207, and my testosterone levels up from 159 to 422. Dr. Dieter Wafuan, what's up, Dr. Dieter, says LDL is down by 69 points, and Marcus Whitfield says, I've lost 105 pounds. Okay. There are 72 additional comments that I do not have time to read. Just absolutely incredible. This is what it's all about. This is why we do these science calls. This is what, the education of problems like insulin resistance. When you have that knowledge, you have power and you can take action and make the change. And thanks to Anna and her great presentation, we know about a lot of what those changes are. Okay, we have 3 minutes. I'm going to bring Anna back. And Anna, there's a couple of questions here, and maybe 1 or 2 of them I will quarterback towards you.
I know I was trying to answer some in the chat and then I got
Okay,
lost.
thank you for that. So I got a fasting insulin test done. I requested from my doctor, but I don't know what the numbers mean. Would you like to answer that? Would you like me to?
Yeah, someone else also asked, and I did end up answering that. So usually, like in Canada, I don't know if the units are the same, but it's between 2 and 25.
Oh no, that's
Single
right.
digit.
Yeah,
Yeah, so single digits are better. Yeah, like for example, my husband had a fasting insulin level of 170. So they told us essentially like 3 months being strict, low carb, that it would cut in half and then half each time. So if you think of, you really need to get a handle at that
You're
point.
saying fasting insulin 9, single digits is 9 or lower is ideal, and maybe even less than 5 or 6 ideally, right?
Yeah. So in clinic, we used to like say 20 or lower, but better single digits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the actual guideline is 20 or lower, but everybody that I've talked to is way too high. So, okay, Christina Soto says, do we need to do anything different with the protocol if we work out regularly? Any adjustments you'd have to make?
Yeah, no, like I follow it as is. I have lots of energy with the drink, way more energy than when I would suck back like 4 coffees in the morning. So I just, I do a lot of strength training. So I usually, the anabolic window is a little bit longer than they used to tell us. So ensure for your feeding window, you're getting enough protein in that time.
Cool. Thank you. Okay, maybe 1 or 2 more. Paula Aranaza says, how about cortisol in the morning? Does it raise your insulin from glycogen store? So glycogen being released, kind of dawn phenomenon stuff. Is that problematic?
Yeah. Yeah, so like that's the benefit of fasting, and I think I may have answered that one in some way, shape, or form. But essentially, like your cortisol rises, and then your blood glucose rises. It helps to get you out of bed in the morning, so your liver releases glycogen, and then your pancreas, like everything releases insulin. So if you're eating a high sugar, especially breakfast, and you're already releasing endogenous glucose, that's where the problem lies. So if you have a desk job and you're sitting all day, then that could take you all day to burn through that glucose. You'll never get to your body fat.
Okay, Stephen Matley says 2 months, no changes, likely not to continue. Okay, so Stephen, I want to just address this. So number 1, sometimes it takes some time, right? I've seen people that it's taken more than just two weeks or 2 days, right? Sometimes it takes some time. But when you say no change, what are you measuring? Are you strictly looking at the scale? Are you doing blood tests? 2 months is probably too tight to see measurable changes on a blood test. Probably want like 90 days for that. So I would encourage you to give it at least 90 days and then see where you're at and do some testing, right? And then the other thing is I have found that many people that come onto the protocol sometimes are like, okay, well, I heard somebody on TikTok say that they ate whatever they wanted and did whatever they wanted. And as long as they drank these 2 drinks a day or these drinks a day, everything was fine. I'll be honest, that was not my experience. right? What I found is that this helped me have more dietary discipline. This was like willpower in a packet for me, right? This was the fiber that I wasn't getting into my regular diet. This was the thing that helped me stay away from the peanut M&Ms and the Diet Pepsi. So, it's not magic, it's science, and we want to lean into the enabling power. You phrased it better than I am, but the enabling, what you call it, metabolic support? Is that what you said, Anna?
Yeah. Yeah. Like metabolic support tools.
The
Yeah.
metabolic support tool, it's not a metabolic eraser that means that you can eat, a full pizza and, I had my balance first. So, be mindful of that. And I'm sure you're not being responsible in that regard. I'm just putting it out there because sometimes people do think I can go hog wild and there's no, but yeah, give it another month. Okay. One more, is a 2 to 3 hour eating window bad? What do you encourage your clients? I, in the past, have been encouraged to try and keep meals to like 30 to 60 minutes.
Yeah.
What do you say about that?
Yeah. So I say time block them in 1 hour windows. So if you usually have like a meal and then you have that mid-morning snack, just push the snack into your 1 hour eating window, max 60 minutes. Otherwise you're grazing, right?
Yeah.
And that just extends that insulin peak.
So this has been amazing. Thank you so much. The last question that I saw in there, people asking about the caffeine. So the Unimate does have some caffeine in it. It's about as much as a cup of coffee would have in it. That is a natural caffeine. There are flavors though, like the chocolate mint that has a decaffeinated option or a low caffeine option. There is a another lemon option that is also low caffeine, and the low caffeine has about 15 milligrams of caffeine, which is about as much caffeine as is in a small piece of chocolate. So if you can eat chocolate, you can have Unimate, no problem in terms of caffeine. This has been amazing. Thank you so much, Anna. We have to wrap up the call, but thank you so much. That was awesome, and we need to have you back very soon. Please put your chat again